Hello, and thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. My name is Roy Ballum, and I work here at the British Nutrition Foundation, and we run Food Effects of Life programme, and we're doing this in partnership with AHDB. So thank you for joining. I'm going to give you a bit of a whiz round the website. As many of you know, we've updated it in the last few months, although the history of Food Effects of Life goes back quite a long way. And in fact, the Food Effects of Life programme was originally launched in schools in 1991, and it was a programme with the organisation called MAF at the time, which was the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Foods, and BNF. And it produced a holistic programme to support students at schools learning about food and nutrition from the ages from 5 through to 16. And over the years, the programme has been some rather large boxes of information, which had posters and photographs and so forth, and old VHS cassettes. And then it moved into a CD-ROM, then it's moved on to a website. And in fact, the website that was in existence until January this year, and it's still available as an archive website, was actually originally launched back in 2004. So we decided after probably 15 years or so of service, it was time to have a bit of a refresh. So we're delighted that you can join us to go through part of that refresh today. You can always find out a bit more about the website and the Foundation's programme just at the top of the website here under the little button called About Food Effects of Life. And here we'll give you some overview about the programme, about its objectives, how we ensure integrity, a bit about history, and then how we map progression going from 3 through to 14 years, plus how we are looking to support 14 to 16 years too. You'll also find information about how we pull together the recipes and a little bit of criteria, plus our contact details. So I hope that's of use to you. I suppose the key thing to say about Food Effects of Life is it's not just the website. Food Effects of Life is our education programme, and it is there really to provide resources for helping to teach young people about where food comes from, cooking and healthy eating, and we provide those free. And then the second part is then to also provide training to support teachers, and whether that's whether you're a trainee teacher or whether you're a practicing teacher or perhaps you're other support staff in a school, we provide training to support you throughout your whole career. So really kind of a lifelong kind of approach. And then thirdly, we really try and champion food education, and that can be through being involved in curriculum reviews, for example, through to we give prizes to top GCSE and National 5 and A-level and advanced higher candidates every year. And you can find more information about that on nutrition.org.uk. So that's a bit of an introduction and background about Food Effects of Life. But all I'm doing now is just to take you through the website as we go through. I will be having a quick look at questions as we go through, but as I'm showing you the actual live site, my question function isn't actually appearing directly on my screen. So my colleague Alex is also in the background, and he's available to answer any questions that you might have. So please do feel free to ask a question if you need to. So the homepage, which we're currently on at the moment, as you can see here, a bit of an overview. We have the menu at the top, and as you can see, very much there are key areas to support the different age phases of the resources that we provide, plus a new section on Food Effects of Life called Recipes, another section around whole school, and then another section around professional development, and that's the professional development, obviously, of teachers. Those all together become very holistic, and really what we think is to provide a one-stop shop for teachers and those people interested in food and nutrition education in their schools to come together to provide that information. You'll also see on the top there's a little blue band, and going from left to right you'll see that there's a little button called News, there's a button called Events. We've been to the section about Food Effects of Life. You can find our contact details. There's a search area where you can search for information, which I'll show you. There's a My Dashboard function, and I can show you how to log in that a bit later on. And if you scroll down the screen, you'll find information about how you can sign up for our newsletter. So if you're not already signed up, you can do that right here. And then we feature different resources on the website. So at the moment, we're featuring Explore Food, which is our nutritional analysis program, which we have free for schools to use. We feature some recipes from my recipe bank. We've got a little sort of promotion aspect here about where food comes from. You can get inspired here, so you can, using the first drop-down box, you can think about the type of resource that you might be interested in, let's say presentation, which age group you're in, and then if you click on View Resources, you'll get a selection of presentations provided to you. We've also got a little advert here about so a few resources around food and numeracy, and at the bottom there's a little menu so you know where you are and can access around the site. And of course we've got the privacy information, accessibility, terms and condition, and cookies information just at the bottom here, like you would expect from most websites. So let's start with the age groups, and they all work in a very similar way, and we've taken quite a lot of time to make sure there's a clear route of progression running from 3 to 14, so that it builds like a stepping stone of information for young people. So if I click on 3 to 5, you'll see here that there are sub areas on this age phase for healthy eating, cooking, where food comes from. New on the website is food commodities. And then we've got another area called activity packs. And this is where we'll produce resources which might be more than the other areas, or it might be something that we've particularly produced, for example, for BNF Healthy Eating Week, or it might be a set of bespoke lessons, for example. So if I go into one of these as an example, so if I can scroll down, we got the information areas very clearly labeled. If I want to find out what's available for healthy eating, just click on that. And then there's some sessions which are here just for 3 to 5. And I can think about, you know, the Eat Well guide, for example. I can click on that. And then what I'll find here is some session information. So this is very much giving the ideas about what the aims are going to be, what resources you will need, a description of how you might organize that particular session for 3 to 5 children aged 3 to 5. And then we've actually then highlighted the resources that you can use. And to access the resource, let's say, for example, I want to download this Eat Well guide. I can very easily just click download, and hopefully you can see it just downloads it down to the bottom of my bar there. And then I can open that file and use it within school, print it out, or if I'm downloading a presentation, I can use it on an interactive whiteboard with the students too. So you can see it's quite an easy approach to go through. Navigation, I can then go back up the top where I've got Eat Well guide to the left. I can click the little blue button which says now back to healthy eating. It then takes me up one. I can click it again and I go back up to the 3 to 5 years. If I move on to 5 to 7, you can see here that the areas underneath are the same as 3 to 5. And if I move over to 7 and 11, that also continues that theme of progression. And when I go to 11 to 14, again, those key areas also appear, but we've also added some additional information around nutritional analysis, our schemes of work that we have for 11 to 14 years, as well as some quizzes that we have here too. Let's have a quick look though at some information for primary. So in here, if I'm interested in, let's say, food commodities, I can click on this area, and this gives me a very simple, easy way to find some information to support about different areas of food commodities. And we've got 4 areas at the moment, so cereals, dairy, meat, and potatoes, and we're looking to expand this over the coming months. So if I click onto cereals, you can see here I've got some activity, and again structured in an approach that might be useful to cut and paste into your own lesson plans, for example. I've got some hyperlinks, and then down here I've got some resources. So you can see here I've got a fact sheet. There's a nice presentation about growing wheat throughout the year, some information about how wheat is then milled into flour, and even a map exercise about looking about where wheat is produced in the UK. So all of those can be used to support your lesson planning as you go through. If I moved over to 11 to 14 and I went back into the food commodities area, you can see here again we've got a cereals area. So if I wanted additional information, and let's say I'm focusing more on the science for grains, again I've got some activity ideas, and then I've got a range of different worksheets and presentations that I can download and use. So you can see it's very simple to use. It's built for progression in mind from 3 to 14, and there is lots of resources that are available free of charge for you to download and use. So we really hope that you find that area helpful. As I say, the new areas on here are around the food commodities, but particularly for 11 to 14, we've got a whole area around nutritional analysis. So we have a free tool called Explore Food, which you can access just by clicking the link, which I'm highlighting here. But also to support you, the busy teacher, we have worksheets that you can download, which would be very useful for using with your students in school. So whether you're doing nutritional analysis of a recipe, you can use those, or perhaps you're going to look at diets for a day and analyze those. And we've even got case studies, and they were quite useful to use as a springboard to look at nutritional analysis, and perhaps for somebody rather than the student themselves, so they can do an analysis for a different population group or a man or woman of a different age, for example. So there's lots of downloadable stuff there that you can get access to. So that's really the 11 to 14 years, but those years in general. If we go to the 14 to 16 area, this is actually being developed, and in fact we've only released some information in the last week or so, so this is all very new and exciting. We've got some key areas, and these have been devised by looking at the different qualification specifications from around the United Kingdom, the key food qualifications, and we've then subdivided these into these key areas. So if I look at healthy eating, if I go into here, you'll then see we've got information to support learning around energy and nutrients, nutritional needs through life, health issues, and then digestion. So if I click on energy and nutrients, what you'll find here is a whole raft of support materials, whether that's presentations or worksheets, but we've also got some interactive quizzes. And if you haven't used Kahoot before, that's a fun way to get the whole class involved, very interactive approach to answering questions, which is really quite fun. We've also got information on nutrients. If you scroll down, macronutrients, micronutrients, fiber, water, and alcohol at the very end there. So you can see it really is useful to scroll through, because there's a huge amount of resources that you can find. And of course, one way you can find those resources is by using the search function. So if you're interested in finding information, let's say on Eat Well, you can just type it in the top and then click search, and then the search engine will then present the results to you. So the results will be presented as relevant pages. So that would be the first way that you can find information. It will then show you key resources that are available. And you can see here, it's quite interesting when you have a look at all the thumbnails, and you can get a little description guide, so you can decide which ones you want to download. And then there's also, if we have an event around Eat Well, that would also appear. And if the search term also links to a recipe, so perhaps you've typed in the word potato, it might also list recipes that are either called potato or contain potatoes in the ingredient list. And just to show you that, I'll go back up to the search and type in potato, click enter, and then here you can see there's some relevant pages. So we've got information around actually potatoes growing and being harvested and processed. We've got teacher resources from a downloadable chickpea curry to a dot-to-dot, which might be more useful for 3 to 5s, through to a favourite potato survey. And then we've got recipes listed here too. So an easy Bombay potato curry, potato and cheese scones, for example. And if you wanted then to find out more resources, you would then click on search resources only, and then that would then give you a whole list of additional resources. And you can see here, you can use the little sort of numbering system at the bottom to go forward, and you can see there's a whole range of resources that are being tagged just to the word potato that you can find. So some very simple search term, you can actually find out a huge amount of information. You can also filter these resources too. So let's say you're just interested in finding resources for 11 to 14, just use the filter for age groups to 11 to 14, and they'll automatically update just to present those resources to you. To be honest, I quite like looking at all age groups because I think there's quite a lot in the 3 to 11 area that might be very useful for secondary school pupils, perhaps if you're thinking of pupils that need some extra support. But also there's some great resources in the lower years, perhaps different types of photographs that could be used as a display information or perhaps a stimulus information too. You can also filter by resource type, so you might just be interested in presentations or topic, or perhaps a different food commodity. I mean, we're already focusing on potatoes here, so we could focus on potatoes within potatoes, for example. But you can see there's a whole raft of ways of looking at the different types of resources, and there's a lot of resources in those key age areas at the top. New on the website, as I mentioned, was this recipe area. So at the moment we have around about 180, 190 recipes, and there's many more to be added to this area too. So you can search in two different ways. So the first one, you can have a keyword search. So we looked at potato before, but you might be interested in, putting a keyword of salmon, or perhaps flour, or perhaps pork or beef, for example. And another way of doing it is you can filter your results. So for example, you can filter the results here by perhaps age group that you're teaching, food commodity. New for us is that we've been looking at recipe complexity. This is about how complex a recipe is, and there's a particular formula that we've used to determine the complexity, and it's very an objective way of doing it rather than coming up with a subjective. This is not to be confused with sort of higher or lower food skills. This is very much about complexity of a recipe, and there's more information on this under the About BNF section. You can also filter recipes depending how much time you've got. So for example, we can do it by 30 minutes, by 45, 60. And for those of you that have got more than 60 minutes, you can also filter the results for that too. You can also think about what food skills you're trying to cover. So what's your learning objective? What's your learning intent for different lessons? So you might be thinking about you want to really focusing on rubbing in skills. That's your learning intent. So you can filter the recipes here. You can scroll down, click rub in, and then the recipes will automatically filter to show you those that feature that skill rub in. Or you might actually decide to change that and just think, actually, I'm not worried about food skills, but I might be in a primary school and I haven't got any sources of heat. So my cooking method might be non-cook, and then it will then just display those recipes that don't require you to use a hob, oven or grill. So there are lots of different ways that you can find those resources. When you go into the different resource or the recipe, let's take the couscous here. You can view the recipe here. It then gives you very clearly the ingredients, the equipment, the method, some top tips. Also, it lists the food skills. Obviously, you can print this out, but also we've made a nice little download available. So you can just click that, and then hopefully you can see here that the recipe's been downloaded. And then there's an overview for you just to give you the idea of which age groups we're suggesting this recipe might be useful for. Of course, you could use it with older students or younger students, but we've just tried to give some sort of signposting of where we think it might be most appropriate. And also the complexity rating as well as the time taken. So we do hope you'll find this feature very helpful in the future. And I hope you want to use the recipe section. And if you spot anything that you feel that we've missed, then please do email in or use the feedback form to let us know. The other section we've got is whole school, and this is very much trying to bring the food teaching and the whole school approach together. So this also will give information around food provision. So for example, that might be breakfast clubs, lunch boxes, food-based standards, for example, in England, or the nutrient standards in Scotland. And again, on the menu system, we have information around BNF Healthy Eating Week. So if you joined in BNF Healthy Eating Week, we've made all the resources available for schools throughout the whole year. We have information around a whole school approach. If I click on this, you can see here we've got information around the policy, providing food, breakfast clubs, lunch boxes, plus also some information around qualifications and frameworks. And we had a consultation that was running earlier in the year too, which is on here. We also have information on parental engagement, and this is an area which will be growing over the next few months, featuring resources that we hope schools can use to work with parents. It may be that you send information home, or perhaps run workshops, or if you have parents' evenings, you can produce a display of information. So lots, again, resources here to help you not just in teaching, but also in a wider school context going forward. The last area along the top is professional development. And within this, what we're trying to do is to provide, as Feed a Fact of Life, some training for teachers. So that's the first area. And you can see here, again, we're demonstrating what conferences we have available. So we have a conference in Leeds with Leeds City Council later in the year. We have a conference in Scotland also later in the year, November. We have webinars, so a bit like the one you're attending now. So we have the one I've got now on here, and then later in the year by Alex, my colleague, he's doing one around the Eat Well guide, and then my colleague Claire's looking at a skill along, which will be very interesting for primary school teachers. And then we have quite a lot of online training. So if you haven't already registered and you're a secondary school teacher, we have a functional properties of food, so a food science course, which is free to register for. And for primary school teachers, depending where you are in the United Kingdom, we have a course available for you around teaching food and nutrition in the primary school classroom. So there's lots of support, and really what we're trying to do is to provide high quality training, either provided via a webinar, online training platform, practical workshops, or larger conferences as we go forward. The site will also contain a personal professional development toolkit, which is what we're currently working on. And these might be tools that you can use to audit your own knowledge, experience and skills. It might be used for personal reflection and review of lessons, for example. So very much, something for you to use to think about your own professional practice and development moving forward. We have a knowledge centre, which comprises two main areas. So there's one for planning and teaching, and one about your knowledge and skills. And in the planning and teaching, we have some support at the moment around planning schemes of work. We have a really good presentation and video, which is looking at supporting children on the autistic spectrum. And then very recently, we had a presenter from Australia who was looking at food literacy versus food skills. And for all of these, what we've done is to not only provide the PowerPoint presentation, so let's take the schemes of work PowerPoint just here, but also there's the webinar video. So if you just click play, the webinar video will suddenly play going forward. And that's quite a nice way to catch up if you've actually missed it, but then you can download the presentation at the same time, because you might want to use that within your own teaching, or you might want to share it with colleagues or run your own in-house training with other people in your department or faculty going forward. So there's quite a lot on planning and teaching in the Knowledge Centre going forward. And in the knowledge and skills, there's information around healthy eating nutrition. So I mentioned the presentation given by colleague Alex. So he did one earlier in the year about bringing the Eat Well guide to life. There's also some presentations around infant nutrition, about food labeling. We have information around cooking and food safety, where food comes from, aspects of food science, and also a bit about our resources and training. Lastly, at the bottom, we're also just compiling some links to where there's some really interesting articles that have been published in our nutrition bulletin, which is BNF's journal. And these are quite useful for some more detailed reading. And then we have a few articles here which are free to access, as well as the virtual issues, which again we think might be relevant to teachers in schools. So that's really an area which is going to grow over time, and it's really worth sort of coming back and having a look at. If we look at the top blue bar, there's the news section. I'm afraid it's not very newsy at the moment. There's only one news article. Again, this is something that we're going to develop over time. If you want to find the latest news and keep up to date, on the home page, as I mentioned earlier, you can click onto the Stay Informed box here, type in your details, and then sign up for our newsletter. So they're really kind of the main kind of content areas of the website. But something I want to end with is something quite new and kind of innovative that we've launched on Food a Fact of Life. And you may have noticed that as I was going through the website, a lot of the resources and recipes had a little add button, a little plus button next to them. And this is a new feature that we've got, which enables you to create your own collections of your favorite resources and recipes, so you never lose them. I don't know how many times you've perhaps been on a website, maybe it's just me, where I go to a website, think it's wonderful, and then I can't remember where things are. This will enable you to actually structure your own collections of resources, so you know exactly where they are the next time you go back. So what you need to do is to click on My Dashboard, and the first thing you'll need to do, if you haven't already done so, is you'll need to register and create an account. I've actually made one earlier, includes my Blue Peter pun. So I've already registered, and I can log in just here. And then you can see this is where I've got my own dashboard, and I can collect collections of my favorite resources and recipes. So I've already got 4 collections here. And to create a new collection, it's very simple. I just literally click Create New Collection. And let's say I'm going to create some a collection for my year 10s, and they're going to have some recipes. So I'll click on Create. I'm going to type in year 10 recipes. And if I want to add a more description, I can add something here. And then click Create. And then that's been created. You can see here the recipes have been added, and there's no resources in at the moment because I've just literally created it. And then if I go to the recipe section, I can then look at the recipes, and perhaps I'm really going to focus with my year 10s on a certain skill set, and I might be interested in really focusing on their knife skills, for example. And then I can then look at the age groups. So I'm going to focus on 14 to 16. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, we're going to start with something fairly simple, these banana crumble top muffins. And at the plus here, I click on the plus, and it's asking me here where I'd like to store that recipe. I can click under year 10 recipes, click add to collection, and then close. I can then think, oh, potato and chicken curry, that sounds good. And again, 45 minutes seems about right for my year 10s. Click plus, add to year 10s, add to collection, and close. And just to show you that works, if I go to the top and click on my dashboard, if I scroll down to my year 10s and I expand this, you can see now that the computer's automatically saved for me the 2 recipes that I've just added to that collection. And then you can carry on. So let's say I'm interested in my Eat Well resources. So I've got a couple in here that I've added. If I was looking across the website, went to healthy eating, and I went to Eat Well, and I saw some great resources here that I think, oh, I'll definitely use that next time. So I can click the add button, go down, click to Eat Well resources, add to collection, close. That presentation or the worksheet I think will be quite good from my classes. Add to my Eat Well resources, and then close that going to. And just to show you that it works, go back up to my dashboard, look at Eat Well, and you can see here that those resources have been added. And I think that you might find that very helpful to try and structure either having it as year groups, or perhaps it could be a thematic, or it might be a collection just called, for example, presentations. So the choice is really yours, and I think it'd be a very flexible way of creating very simple collections of your favorite resources and recipes as you go forward. What the system also does is it also helps you if you've downloaded resources and you haven't saved them. It will also show you which things you've downloaded, when you've downloaded them, and you can also add those to a collection. And that might be quite helpful. I don't know about you, sometimes I download things and I forget that I've actually downloaded them because I've already moved on to the next thing. So at least here, it's a very useful mechanism where we can then see what we've downloaded, and then actually I can add to a collection, add to that, and then it's safe and sound in my collection bank as I go forward. So I hope you found that useful, and I hope you enjoy using the Food Facts of Life website. If you haven't got any comments, then please do let us know here at the Foundation. We'd be delighted to receive those from you. Please do think about signing up for our newsletter if you don't already do so, and you can also follow us on Twitter at Food Facts of Life, and we'd be delighted to follow you as well as sort of give you a little heart symbol for the work that you do in your lessons. I hope you found that useful, just a very quick interactive tour of the website. If you have got any questions, please do let me know, and perhaps Alex has already had those from you. But if not, have a good afternoon, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye.